So, brothers, welcome to another podcast or broadcast of the North Carolina Masonic Research Society. And tonight we are really honored to have Brother Juan Sepulveda. Juan is a member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida. He's the creator and host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast, co-host of the Masonic Roundtable, an extremely talented Masonic artist who creates, not only Masonic art, but aprons as well. And he's very passionate about history, Masonic education, and he also gets pretty darn esoteric at times too. So we are really honored to have you on, and whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear brother. I'm delighted that we're taking a moment to come together. It is unfortunate that the planet is going through what we're going through, and it is affecting so many people in so many different levels. But I'm happy to see that we're stepping up to the occasion and we're making this kind of interaction a priority. That we are not hiding, we're not retreating, we're actually heading on and coming together as brothers to make a difference in one another, and ideally to take what we learn in Masonry and put it to practice in making a difference in the lives of those who surround us. So I'm going to share my screen in 1 second, more like 5 seconds. Let's see. Please let me know if you can see can you read what's on the screen?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Got it.
Excellent. So the presentation today is called Steadfast Progression. It's a sustainable improvement plan for us to tackle the difficulties that Masonry is facing. And I would invite you to take a moment and imagine that you are driving in front of your lodge. Leisurely stroll, driving by, and you notice that from the lodge, there's a line forming of men that extends to the corner of the block. And to your surprise, you've never seen a line forming. You get curious, so you continue driving and you go for a little bit. And as you turn the corner, you're surprised to see that this line continues around the corner and for blocks and blocks on end, as far as your eyes can see. Now you continue to drive and imagine that this is about 20 miles of men standing one in front of the other from your lodge. 20 miles. This is representative of about 40,000 men. And once I tell you what this number represents, you may not be very excited. But according to some of the statistics that my brother John Rourke has gathered from different Grand Lodges and different sources, in the United States, on average, we're losing about 40,000 men every single year. But this doesn't count death. This is only for non-payment of dues. 40,000 men. Now, I'll help you visualize. This right here is approximately 30,000 people watching a tennis match. And we're talking about 40,000 men. Now, I'd like for you to think about that these were men who at one point showed interest in Masonry. They approached a lodge, spoke with brothers, met with them, and they were found worthy and well qualified. They went through the beautiful experience of going through the degrees and received the same working tools that you and I received. What happened? What happened with their experience that they felt that whatever they were receiving from their lodge was not worth their money? So by losing 40,000 men every year, just to drive the message home even further, think of just one. Imagine that one man right there came to lodge, starting a family. That family, that nuclear family, that group of people could have benefited tremendously from all the lessons that that man was receiving in Masonry. So today, what I want to explore, I obviously don't want to leave it in this negative tone. There is an opportunity for us to step up, take responsibility, and make a difference so that we can stave off this decline, so that we can turn the tide and actually help more families like this one have a better life. For men like this to have a better opportunity to achieve their greatest potential by implementing the lessons of Masonry into their lives. So I'm going to go over these 5 steps that we can focus on that should help us. If we take them seriously and we implement what we learn from them, we should be able to make a difference in the lives of these men that are turning their back on Masonry, and in essence, turning their back on the opportunity to improve themselves. And these are craving, the challenge, the cooperation, the climb, and the conquest. So let's talk about the craving. I don't know if any of you brothers recognize what this is, but I guarantee you, if there's a Puerto Rican among us from the metro area in Puerto Rico, San Juan, Levittown, any of that area, they know what this is. This is the most addictive bread your face will ever encounter. To the point that when I first moved to the United States in 1999, I remember craving this bread and asking my family to bring a few loaves of bread from this bakery whenever they come to visit me in Puerto Rico. Now you'd say, come on, Juan, you can't find good bread in Kissimmee? Listen to me. This is something else. Now, it was not only me. I would go to the Orlando International Airport, and you would have families coming with bags of bread from Lemmy. Like eventually these people caught wind and they started exporting some of the bread and started making it more official instead of having this grassroots addiction problem. So eventually they've introduced this bread over here. So if you get a chance to check it out, anywhere where you have a good number of Puerto Ricans living, you can find some Lemmy bread. But what is a craving? Like, why did I want that bread so much? And there are different reasons for us to crave something. One of the reasons could be because our body and our mind recognizes that there is a nutrient in a specific food that we're missing. So maybe you haven't eaten asparagus in a while and there's a mineral or a vitamin in there that your body is craving. So your mind is not going to tell you, oh, go find some potassium or find whatever. It will tell you the last time that you had a good source of this was when you had asparagus. Go get you some. So another thing that could be fueling the craving is that hit of endorphins and basically that addictive physical response to something as amazing as bread from Lemmy. So what the heck does this bread have to do with the brothers that are leaving Masonry? Well, these were men who, when we asked them, what are you here to do? You know the answer. They were looking for light. They were looking for enlightenment. They were looking for growth, for development. They recognized that our fraternity had the tools and the lessons and the culture to put this man in a position of advantage to build himself. Now, as Masons, we are builders of men. All right. Apologies. Seems like I have a brother that just hopped on the call. Thank you so much. So these men were craving that. They were craving that growth. And not being able to get what they were looking for sometimes contributes to the decline in the membership. And I'm sure that based on my conversations with many brothers and the interactions that I have with brothers online, there is an insidious detriment of education in our fraternity that I think contributes to that lack of fulfillment or the lack of the satisfaction to satisfy that craving. So these men, I remember my experience when I first joined Masonry. I was very excited. I loved the degrees. My brothers did a great job. They took time away from their families and they gave me an experience of a lifetime. I'm never going to forget the day that I was initiated, passed, and raised. But I remember working in my catechism and working and learning the different things to earn the privilege of being able to sit with my brothers in a meeting. And when I finally got that opportunity and I sat in lodge, I remember that meeting. I felt the love from the brothers and I felt the fellowship, but there was very, very little, if no, education. And I remember thinking, oh, well, maybe this is the meeting where we actually conduct business. This is the one where we actually talk about the fryer and we talk about the roof and we argue about the budget. But then the next one, that's the one that's going to have the meat and potatoes for me to actually get that, what I'm looking for. Brothers, the second meeting came and nothing. They read minutes, correspondence, paid bills, argued a little bit about the grease trap. I don't know what a grease trap is, but I know those men were passionate about it. Those men, they were fighting about who donated that grease trap and who serviced it. And I have no idea what it is till today, but I know I hate grease traps because they robbed 2 nights from my life. And unfortunately, that continued to happen. And I was surprised. I'm like, well, maybe I need to ask, or I need to start looking out and to fulfill that craving. I wanted to know more about the history. I wanted to know more about the practical application of those lessons that I received in the degrees. And it took some effort in my part. And unfortunately, not everyone is going to ask. If you have someone come in and their experience is that there's no Masonic education in the meetings, a good number of them are going to feel that we did not deliver on that value proposition. We did not deliver the goods. We didn't bring the Lemmy bread. So with each one of these steps that I will share with you, I'm going to share an action. I'm going to give you some advice of one thing that we can do. And here the challenge is that we have men who are craving light in Masonry. And unfortunately, when they come to the meetings, if they don't leave the meeting feeling like, man, that was a good use of my time. That was amazing. If they don't feel like that, a few meetings in a row, Netflix is going to win. Disney Plus, Hulu, the game on TV, all of these other things are going to win the battle and are going to fulfill that entertainment desire that they may have. So what's the action that we can take? If we prioritize Masonic education in our meetings, and that may sound daunting because, like, do we find a speaker for every week? Do I have to do a whole bunch of research? I have a business that I have to run. I have a family to attend. It doesn't have to be. Any improvement we bring into the prioritization of Masonic education into the lodge is welcome. It's going to make a difference. It's going to be better than not having any education at all. So that small increment that we put into the Masonic education is going to pay dividends because it will keep brothers engaged. It will actually help them put to practice some of the lessons of Masonry. The next thing that we have to think about is the challenge. And the challenge is here is related to the previous step. If we didn't satisfy that craving, now the challenge is to actually hook this brother into the good parts of Masonry and fulfill that desire. And the challenge becomes us making what we do practical for the brothers. And it is not that we don't have access to these things. It's not that we don't have access to Masonic education. Think of the Masonic bulletins. You have an inexhaustible amount of short education papers that brothers can bring in. We have an amazing number of brothers who are talented in public speaking, who have a presence, who have many of our brothers are teachers, professors, they're lecturers, and you can tap into these talents in order for there to be more participation and more emphasis made into the Masonic education. The other challenge that we face is efficiency. One thing that I'm preaching to the choir here because a lot of you brothers are using technology now to get some sort of Masonic conversation, Masonic education into your schedule. But if you really look at how our lodges operate, it seems like we're dragging some old behaviors and old procedures that haven't progressed with us. Right now, if you, I'm sure each one of you has one of these puppies nearby. And when I look at this and I talk about this, the technology that I have here in my pocket exceeds the technology that was available to the men who put a man on the moon. And yet, how many hours do we spend looking at these little devices and just looking at funny videos or playing games or just bickering with people on Facebook? Not that any of you do that. Like Masons don't bicker, but just an example. So here we have a technology that we seem to be neglecting. Do we need a printed trestle board? Do we need to print one for every member? Is there a way to use technologies like automated email messaging systems, like the ones businesses use to stay in touch with people on their birthday or on their anniversary, to reach out to people and congratulate them on a personal or professional achievement? We seem to be missing some of these opportunities because we have procedures that haven't evolved. The reading of the minutes, I understand the value of it. I spent a year as the historian for my lodge. I really loved the opportunity to grab those old books and sift through them and find all these gems. All these questions that I had about how my lodge got started were answered. I got to know some people that were long gone who had an impact in my lodge. And that I had access to it because of the minutes. But the challenge is that we are not adapting fast enough. Can we get those minutes and digitize them so that we can preserve them better? We have a system of redundancy to protect it from floods or fires or hurricanes or any other thing that can destroy them. We have access to these technologies. We have access to be more effective in how we do things, how we schedule meetings, how we remind brothers to come and visit, how we keep track of how many education sessions brothers are acquiring. So the action that I suggest here is for us to actually look at Masonry not as a business, but recognize that there are some practices within businesses and within organizations that we can adopt in order to be more effective, have a greater impact or greater reach within the members of our fraternity. Now, here comes a good one. The cooperation. And I love this photo. It's a beautiful It's a beautiful place to look at from a picture. I could never imagine myself in the edge of a cliff like that. But what I love here is like you have one person's life basically holding on, pending or holding to the life of another. If it's not because of that cooperation, they are not going to summit that mountain. Now, life is a journey that is better enjoyed in company. I regret that we're going through what we're going, that we're not able to see our brothers, that we're not able to sit together and have a meal. I would love to be sitting and enjoying a scotch and a stogie with Brother Matt right now. I just have to vicariously enjoy it by seeing him, and we're at a distance. This is a good alternative for what we could do, but we crave that. We crave that connection. We crave anytime and Brother Matt knows this, like we come together whenever we travel and give presentations, and there's no comparison to coming together with a brother and giving him a hug and joking around for a while and connecting and learning more about one another. But the cooperation that I want to emphasize here is that vision that we share for our lodge. Remember that 40,000 men that we are losing, it's a collective. This is the entire nation seems to be losing this number. But you and I are responsible for losing a few of them. You and I can make a difference in a few of those. And ideally inspire other brothers to actually make changes in their lodge, make changes in the way that they deal with masonry so that we can actually reach those brothers that we're losing. Unfortunately, our society continues to become more and more isolated. Even before the pandemic, you would have people sitting at a table in a restaurant, but both of them looking at a screen, having no personal connection with that other person, but diverting their attention to whatever's happening in that screen. And you have people all trying to do things on their own, do it yourself, and pull yourself by the bootstraps. All those mentalities that isolate people, have them all do things on their own. And let me ask, for those brothers here who have been masters of their lodge, I'm sure that you can think back, the majority, I assume, you can think back of the few years leading up to you being in the East. You had ideas of what you were going to do with the lodge when you were finally master of the lodge. Am I right to assume that when you finally sat down and put that hat on and began your year, that you didn't accomplish nearly as many things that you wanted to do for your lodge? Many times you have, and I've heard this conversation, in my year, when I'm the worshipful master, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to focus on this. And I'm going to focus. And I. All they focus is about what they're going to do. But Masonry thrives in the cooperation. It thrives in that community that we build, that common vision that we bring together to make a difference. So what do I encourage brothers to do in regards to keeping the membership active and keeping the membership growing and keeping the harmony together when it comes to the cooperation? And what I suggest is that we try to eliminate as much as we can that whole my year mentality. If you can think of politics, this happens, it's almost like a vicious circle where you have 4 to 8 years of one president from the Democrats, and then you have 4 to 8 years of the Republican. And the majority of the time, one is undoing what the previous administration did. And you have this tug of war. It's like, oh, in my administration, we did this, and the previous administration did the other. And you have this back and forth of pointing fingers and actually pulling to your own side. And who suffers is the country. By the same token, who suffers in our lodge when we adopt that kind of mentality is like, I'm only going to do what I want to do and forget what this master wants. We hurt our membership. So what's the action? What's the call to action in the cooperation? Let's try as much as we can to eradicate that my year culture from our lodges. And for all the brothers who are part of the officer line, for there to be cohesion within them, for there to be a common vision that everybody can sign up on. So you as the master can have your senior warden, your junior warden, and everyone else down the line agree or come to a consensus of what is it that you want to materialize in the lodge. Because that way, even if you don't get all the things that you want in your year, you don't lose the momentum because the vision is unified. The vision is singular. It's the same from the master to the steward to whomever. And we do a disservice to the craft if we try to do that my year mentality. I challenge you, brothers, to, even if you're a past master, mentor those new masters that are coming after you to actually adopt that cooperative mentality to bring the entire lodge forward. And if you do that successfully, you'll have some of the capital and some of the stamina and some of the energy to help your district also adopt that mentality. Imagine if the vision for masonry could permeate all levels of the craft, from the Grand Lodge all the way down to the individual lodges, and everyone having the same vision and working in unison, almost by the beat of a drum, making sure that brothers are getting those cravings of light satisfied. It will be an amazing time for masonry. We can do that. The next step that I want to talk to you about is the climb. Now, hopefully none of you is afraid of heights, because I've seemed to have chosen all graphics about being high up on a mountain. But the climb is important to consider, because if we're losing 40,000 men today, we're going to lose 30,000 before we lose 0. You follow me? There's no way that next year we're not going to lose anyone. We're still going to continue to lose an incredible amount of people every single year for non-payment of dues, because they don't feel they're getting from masonry what they came here for. So it seems daunting to say, wait, how can we reverse this trend? How can we actually get these men to stay connected, to actually remain active in the lodge? It seems daunting, but just like any kind of climb, any kind of effort, anything worth doing is going to require some sacrifice, is going to require some dedication. And I wanted to share a quote that I'm sure you've heard before that says that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Now, one thing that you don't normally hear is the entirety of that quote. That quote in its entirety says, "Do the difficult things while they are easy, and do great things while they are small. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." In other words, let's tackle the easy components right now before they complicate themselves, before they become even more difficult to tackle. And what are some of these easy steps, perhaps? Speeding up the reading of the minutes. Agreeing on a budget. Not all lodges, after agreeing on a budget, just vote on, you get people wrapped up in giving all the details in every single meeting. Of course, if your jurisdiction allows it, if all the bills are within the budgeted amount, it's just one wrap and you move on. Bringing those efficiencies, having that consistency of delivery so that you can free up some time in your meeting for some very meaningful Masonic education. I'm stuck on the bread. So in this case, this climb is going to require us to take one little step at a time and make this constant progression, this constant improvement to actually reach the summit of what we want. And the summit is nothing more than being able to provide every single member of our lodges with the light that they need to maximize their potential here in life. So think about that. Your efforts into taking those steps have the potential of taking that one man and actually helping him reach the summit of excellence, reach the ultimate potential that he can achieve. And that's within your power. That's within your power and mine. Now, one strategy that I enjoy and that I share as much as I can is called Kaizen. It's a managerial philosophy that encourages. This is used in factories. I know Toyota is known to have implemented this, and among many other companies, even I think. Who was it? I think it was IBM is another one. They call it something different, but the original name, one of the most popular iterations of the name is Kaizen. And it basically, it means constant improvement. So it is that effort to improve a small little bit every single day. That's how I developed my skill as an artist. When I first started, I couldn't paint to save my life. It was ugly. It was just unsightly. And it took one improvement after the other, one brush stroke after the other for me to give that painting a shape. Once I learned one technique, I don't forget it. I don't neglect it. I don't put it in the back. Part of this Kaizen mentality encourages you to the terrain that you're gaining with your minimal improvement on that day, don't lose it. Build upon that and you continue making it better. Don't let up. Continue making things a little bit better. Why a little bit better? Many of us have gone into a diet where we say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not having any more sugar. I'm not having any more rice. And that's a nightmare. Like, I don't know about you, but you take sugar away from me, you take rice away from me, and I'm miserable. Those cold turkey diets of just getting rid of some item or another, it's not sustainable because your body eventually just it rebels against it. So by adopting this mentality of constant progress, of little improvements, little increments, you do these in a consistent basis, and they're so small that they become part of your nature. These are just steps that we do, and this is how we do it. So my call to action, brothers, is to keep that mentality of Kaizen in mind and make sure that we are finding the areas that where we can improve. If your secretary is great at his bookkeeping and he's great at keeping things in order, but he is super slow at reading the minutes, you can speak with him. Give him some pointers. Perhaps there are portions of the minutes that we don't have to go into details. Shave a few minutes off in this meeting, shave a few minutes off in the next meeting, and eventually you've brought your brother up to a speed and a cadence that allows and frees up time for a more nutritious portion of the meeting, like Masonic education. Now, finally, we have the conquest. The conquest is that ability to hold the terrain, to hold your ground, to actually, once you've achieved something, for you to make it so concretely yours that it doesn't matter what other army comes and tries to take it away from you. They can't. It is yours. It's a battle for the mind. It's a battle for permanence. There are many examples in history where you have an army who is gaining ground, who has an objective and goes after it with great passion and great determination and focus, laser focus, and gets it done. Mission accomplished. We actually captured this land, and we actually expanded our territory. But that effort and that energy is futile if there's no strategy for maintaining, or what I call conquering, that space. Being able to set procedures in place to make the positive changes that we bring to our craft and to our lodges a permanent component of the scene. It is imperative upon all of us to create this, to create that determination to actually make adjustments that are positive for the craft and have a buy-in from everyone else in your group. And this kind of ties up to the cooperation component, but there's an added element. There's a quote by a great American philosopher who said, "Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face." Anyone can tell me who that philosopher is? That's Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson said that, and it's the truth. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, or until they put their hat on and sit in the East, until they have a brother giving them a hard time or pulling for their own agenda. These things will happen. And the way that we can conquer is for us to build a resilience, to build the relationships that we have with other brothers, and have them buy in on the vision that we want for the lodge, but also for them to be committed to helping maintain these positive changes. You'll have difficulties. That's going to happen. But I guarantee you that the things that happen in a lodge that challenge the progress of it are not happening in a vacuum, and have very likely happened somewhere else. We are not alone, and we need to be as resilient as possible to be able to conquer these new acquired spaces. Can we implement family time into our lodge? There are lodges that don't care for it. Those who do, those who really value implementing or involving the family in the lodge, they do great by conquering that as a permanent fixture of their lodge. Because then it doesn't matter how much time goes by, you know that you've built a legacy of bringing the family into the lodge and making more of a family environment. It could be esoterics. It could be spirituality. It could be history. It doesn't matter what it is. But if your lodge is known for that, you are able to then conquer that space and set processes in place for those to continue. So my encouragement for you to actually be successful at that conquest that I talk about is for us to not get complacent. Let's not get complacent when it comes to actually making our lodges better. Let's make sure that we are alert, and we try to anticipate any of the difficulties, and we try to get everyone involved to put together a plan, a resilient one, a sturdy one that can help us build stability in our lodges, and ideally really make a difference in the lives of everyone who dares and come inside of it. Now, finally, I'm going to ask you to think again. This time, get back into your car and drive in front of your lodge. And imagine again that there's a line of men forming right in front of your lodge. And this line extends to the edge of the block. And as you keep on driving and turn the corner, that line continues to stretch as far as your eyes can see. And now imagine that it goes for more than 20 miles. And think of the potential that we can have in making that line the complete opposite of the first one that we talked about. Where now we could have a surplus of men who are worthy, well qualified, who could take the tools of masonry and put them to practice in their personal lives and having a significant impact in their lives, the lives of their families, their communities, and ideally society as a whole. Thank you, brothers.
Awesome.
Juan, that was absolutely fantastic. I think you hit the nail on the head with several things, and I want to prove a point. I'm gonna put a brother on the spot. Brother Sam Ward, I know you're still on here. Brother Sam is one of the newest members of, one of the youngest members of Wendell 565 in Wendell, North Carolina. I'm very proud to be a lodge brother with him. But Sam, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, if you don't mind going live in front of everyone, tell us what is your favorite part of a lodge meeting, and what is it that just, kind of, makes you tune out?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My favorite part is probably just the camaraderie and the brotherhood part, just having people that you can call your brother and having a place to go and not be judged. That's probably my favorite part about lodge meetings, going there and knowing that you can have someone to talk to.
But if you had to pick out one particular part of a lodge meeting that you really weren't that thrilled with or interested in, what would that be?
Probably a lot of the business stuff that doesn't apply to anything that I can really give an opinion on myself, things that I'm not really that knowledgeable on.
Yeah, I see Juan nodding. Juan, Sam Ward, Juan Sepulveda. But yeah, Sam, you hit the nail on the head, and I think you just proved Juan's point. We spend so much time in lodge meetings droning on about business, fixing the hole in the parking lot, whatever the case may be, listening to his secretary read the minutes from the previous meeting in real time, which horrifies me. Look, just summarize the meetings. You've already recorded them. Just summarize them, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, Juan, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. And if you've got time for some questions, I'd love to open it up to the brothers.
Oh, absolutely. I have plenty of time. And thank you very much, Sam, for that. And, don't lose that. If that's what you like about your lodge, if that's what drives you in your lodge, create the environment in which that is a possibility. Find the favorite things of your lodge, of your experience in lodge, and support that, because just as that is important to you, it will be important for other brothers who come after you. And the good thing is we have different flavors. You have lodges where they're very patriotic, and there's a lot of there are a lot of brothers who served in the military, for example, and there's an element of that which is, it's part of the DNA of the lodge. If that's what you love about your lodge, preserve it, make it shine. The thing is that all of these business aspects that we talk about in lodge, they're important. Like, we're leaders in an organization. We have to take care of these things. But the problem is, given the nature of the progressive line, you have a man in a position for just 1 year. And I've heard this a lot of times. I don't know how many of you agree with this, but you start getting the hang of your position towards the end. It's November, or I don't know when you switch. And that's when you're getting comfortable with being the senior deacon. And now you got to move on to the next position. You have different responsibilities. So encouraging brothers to learn as many positions as possible, to understand and collaborate with the people above. I say above, but we know we're on level, but you know what I mean? You're a senior deacon, spend time with the junior warden. That's going to be your next position, ideally. And what are his responsibilities? Become familiar with that. So I encourage brothers, make your lodge, whatever is part of this DNA, make that the highlight. And we got to take the spotlight off of some of this, these other aspects that are not as edifying. And like, I don't think there's going to be a better word for it. Edifying, something that builds you. It's not the minutes, and it's not paying the bills, and it's not reading the correspondence. It is the Masonic education and raising the bar, making the standards of Masonic education higher with every iteration. I think it's crucial. I remember I had a brother who, in my previous lodge, I used to be a member of Eola Lodge, number 207 in Orlando. And there was a brother who, he was incredibly passionate about the craft. And he was getting involved in everything. He was learning a lot, great retention, great guy. And one thing that he loved was public speaking. And they gave him an opportunity on I think it was like Memorial Day. I think it was near Memorial Day, and he's a veteran, so he gave a presentation where he talked about his life story, and he talked about how he got injured. This brother, he lost an eye in theater, and it was amazing. Like everything connected. Like you had this brother in his element doing public speaking in front of the lodge that he loved. And the energy that day was incredible. We never again invited him to speak. Till this day, I don't understand. Like, how did we not take this man who loved public speaking? I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if it is your cup of tea, there is plenty of room in lodge to stand up and give a structured, concise, profound presentation. It doesn't have to be 40 minutes. It doesn't have to be. If you spend 2 minutes reading a Masonic poem or reciting a Masonic poem, we all have good retentive memory, I hope. The impact you can have on brothers would be significant.
So Juan, Brother Jeremy Chevrier on Facebook asked, do you think that recording the minutes and reading them out loud in detail may have some importance?
Yeah, absolutely. It is important. It is important. I don't think we need to get rid of it. I think we need to expedite it. We need to be efficient. We need to have it not take as long as it does. And think of this, brothers, also. The structure of your meeting as a master, and I'm speaking for my jurisdiction, you have requirements. There are things that you have to hit on every single meeting. But the order in which you give those, you're in charge. You have the liberty to present them in the order that you want. Don't open the meeting with the minutes if you can't. It's almost like, all right, we finally sit down and then we just dive right into the most boring part of the meeting. Switch it a bit. Get a feel for what your brothers in your lodge respond the best to. I remember 2018, the structure of our meeting in lodge, we had a thing called where we talked about brothers who were sickness and distress, right? So we bring forth any brother who was sick or was in distress, and we talked about it. We said a prayer, and then immediately we followed with glad tidings. So we share some positive thing that was happening in our lives. And some really awesome stuff was happening in my professional life in 2018. I had the good fortune of being selected as the Artist of the Year by the governor of Florida. They selected me as the Artist of the Year for the Hispanic Artist of the Year. And they gave me a solo exhibition in the State Department, and they hung my art in the mansion of the governor. And I got to take my dad and my mother-in-law up to Tallahassee to meet the governor. Like, it was beautiful. But how do I share that with the brothers right after a brother shares that his wife has cancer and the that she is not doing very well. That was very difficult because like it felt inadequate for me to, right after we heard about the very sad portion of my brother losing his significant other, for me to come in with the glad tidings and say, oh, by the way, I just wanted to share with my brothers, like that arrangement should have been different. Those two should have been separate. Now it's changed since, but I'm just saying that as an example that sometimes we may not think the order in which we're running the meeting, but it will be perhaps open for better discussion, more spirited discussion, a better flow if we arrange it properly. So, Brother Chevier, brother, it is important for us to have minutes. All that stuff is important. What we can't do is have that be the highlight of the meeting. It's just I've been to meetings where you have two sets of minutes being read. And I remember in New York, we did a degree and they read the minutes from the previous and of that night. And I know it was midnight by the time that we were reading the minutes of that day. So that was I love the experience of being there. But when they said that they're going to start reading the minutes, I'm like, no, come on. This can't be.
Yeah. Now, Juan, I'm not sure how it is in Florida. I know here in North Carolina and in Virginia, the secretary reads the minutes of the previous stated communication, but I think what he should be doing is just summarizing the meetings, the minutes. I mean, they're written. If any brother really wants to go through them in detail, they're available for everyone, but it shouldn't be long and drawn out. I think at the end of the meeting, it is important for the secretary to be a little more detailed, because if there's a mistake in there, that's the time for the brothers to correct that and make sure the minutes are accurate. Mm-hmm. But don't start a meeting by reading a half hour worth of minutes from the previous meeting, because you're going to lose everyone.
Yeah. And I there's also a perception kind of thing. And I mean, I don't want to make the whole topic the minutes, but when you know why you're doing things, your reaction and your attitude towards the things changes. Like, for example, I have found a significant difference in how I perceive the minutes after being the historian, after recognizing the importance of having thorough notes. It may seem trivial now, but 100 years from now, understanding that the reason we chose to remove the Boy Scouts from our lodge was because of this reason. I think it's important for posterity, for them to have access to the reasons. Like, what happened? They had Boy Scouts meeting in their lodge for decades. Why did they deny their meeting space in 2018? You can take a guess if you want, but that happened. I think it's going to be important in 100 years that is there, but we have to be efficient. And I tell you one thing, I've been to meetings where I hear the minutes and I am like, wow, that brother did a great job reading the minutes. Like he has a good cadence. He just hits on the spots, blah, 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 blah. There's a correction, done. I corrected it and moving on. And now let's go to the presentations. It's very likely that you have a lodge that is very efficient at reading the minutes. You have a secretary who is great at doing it. See what you can learn from him. See what he knows that you can implement or make part of the training for the rest of the secretaries, or see how you can cross-pollinate basically between lodges to make sure that that's important. Let's get it done. But now let's move on to something, let's give this young man who is newlywed some practical advice that Masonry could give him to be a better husband. That's worth my time. Sitting in lodge and hearing how using the common gavel adequately is going to make me a, you know, a better dad. So anyway, I think that's what brothers come here to do. And we just cheat them out of the experience. It's there, but many times.
So any of the brothers have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, jump right in. Let's see, Brother Frank, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, hang on, I'll do it for you, Frank. Oh,
There.
there you go.
How about now?
Gotcha, loud and clear.
There we go.
Frank Bell. I'm with University Lodge 51, Grand Lodge, Pennsylvania, down here in sunny Florida.
Nice.
Enjoyed your talk. There's been millions. This has been the big thing for a lot of jurisdictions is the body drain. We've gotten past that now. We used to have 250,000 members. We used to average around 250,000 all the time. We're probably at about 170, 175. But it's not really such a big deal anymore. There was a period, like you said, where they were paranoid of it. We had the homes and everything else, and they didn't figure the pyramid would work out. But, I know that we did Massachusetts, New York, and California all spent a lot of money looking at the issue. And we came about to the idea that we just brought back to the importance. We do work with the ritual. It's ritual work. It's degree work. You get that up and running. And we don't really have a lot of the problems that others do. I understand that it seems to be a minute issue. Ask your district deputy, ask your grand master. There usually is an expedited version. You just have them look at it like Brother Matt said, hang it on a billboard out front when they come in, yay, nay, it, bang, it's over. I mean, all the other jurisdictions, if you talk to more and more people, you'll get ways. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's been invented. There's a lot of things out there for you, but having been to Florida Lodge, are you now starting to get back into that where you're spending more time with your ritual and degree work? Because that gives you a basis for your conversations. There's all your esoteric discussions you need is going to come right from that.
Well, I see your point, and I'm a ritualist, so I do enjoy a good ritual. And part of the problem that I've noticed is that you have lack of membership, right? So you have a lodge that has about 300 members, only of which 30 are active. It's about a 10% of members to active members, right? And you have an officer line that you have to fill in. And oftentimes, because you don't have quorum, you're just picking anyone to be a leader. Now, my experience tells me that not everyone's a leader. Not everyone has the charisma or the education or the patience to be an effective leader, right? You can teach someone how to be a better leader, but not everyone has that innately. Now, if you only have a pool of 20 brothers to pick from, 7 of which are already past masters, are you really being selective about who is a leader within your lodge? Or are you just settling with whomever is willing and able to hop in the line?
You talking about the ritual side or bringing people inside?
So I'm talking about the membership itself, right? So you have that happen. You're not selecting the best ritualist to do the degree. You're almost, and I've seen this a lot here in Florida. I don't know if it happens where you are. You're almost begging. Oh, who wants to be the senior warden for this degree? Who can be the senior deacon? And you have this forceful continuation of invitation of who can be part of the ritual. Now, there are states where they have degree teams, and they focus on excellence. And there's no prompting from the sides. There's no stepping on their words or losing their place. These are brothers who are dedicated to giving that one man the most impressive and memorable initiatic experience. That I'm in favor of. But what seems to happen is that you're picking whomever can do it, whomever's available, or even conductors. Having a good conductor in a degree can make a significant difference on the experience of the candidate. And if you just pull someone from the sidelines that doesn't know what to do, can't do. So I agree with you. There has to be quality in the ritual, but that can't be the end all of it.
I'm not saying it's the end all, but like I said, these people that that are above me, I've thrown thousands and thousands of dollars at this thing. They have real business people have come in to try to stem the losses. And the difference between us and the Moose Club, other than the bar, is that we have our ritual and our degree work. And to make people better at it will only improve them as members. Not everybody's going to be the greatest. Well, we are. The officers had to be an officer. You have to be able to confer to the degree, get certified at the school, and that's it.
Yeah.
You want to be the man, you have to be able to confer the degrees.
Yeah.
You do it differently. You're like New York. I've seen your work. Pompano is right over here, right up the street from my house. It's now called North Broward, I think. But you may not have the whole thing for the second set, but you should be able to get the people to handle the first part. But if, once again, like you said, you're relying on one or two guys to do it, it's a meritocracy. If they want a challenge, here's your challenge. You don't have to be great at public speaking. I have guys that are terrible public speakers that can confer all the degrees. It takes them a while, but it gets done. The thing is, that's what we're selling. We're the Freemasons, and if they aren't interested in, that encapsulation of enlightenment thought, then Moose and Elks. Pretty much, that's what's come about. You're not in competition with the television or the sports or whatever. You're in competition at this point with a war of ignorance on the rest of the Americans and the rest of the world. We go to Brazil. I've had a chance to get a lodge in Brazil, Colombia, places like that. This is a big thing.
What is?
Being Mason is a big deal.
Yeah.
People just don't, between knowing the work and the money that they have to put out, it's quite impressive.
Yeah.
So when they hear us talking about the issues we have, they kind of find it funny. And just like you said, 10% of it, 300. When we were in England, the guys only had 50 guys in the lodge. At 51, they have to split off and go to another lodge. So 30 should be adequate to do what you're doing. They're not going to, everyone's not a star.
Yeah.
But, if you cut out the talk about the grease trap, then they can get back to what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And efficiency in the meeting is crucial, in my opinion, because it frees up time to do meaningful work. And the degrees are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. We only get one opportunity to go through it. So I go through each degree only one time. But when I go and I watch it a second time or participate in it, I glean a little bit more from it. If it's excellent work, even better, right? Now, there is more to Masonry than the ritual. And not everyone is going to glean the lessons just from watching the degrees. Sometimes you have to actually bring the practical side. Like, let's talk about, how does the 24-inch gauge look in the 21st century? Because I guarantee you, if we do a show of hands right now, how many of you slept more than 7 hours last night? You'll see a hand, two hands. And like, this is basic information that you get in the degree. How can we actually tell a man that the importance, just beyond the ritual, here are some tips, or here's what's working for me? And for example, I love the component of a mentor. And we make the distinction here in Florida between the instructor and the mentor. The instructor is the brother who's actually going to help you through the catechism and teach you floor work and all that kind of stuff. But the mentor's role is to actually help you recognize the practical implementation of those lessons into your life. And in so many lodges, we're neglecting that. Like, when I started, I wish I had more of those conversations where we were talking about what it really meant to put to practice some of the lessons of Masonry.
So
So
have you had a chance to work with your district or your state to try to put something like that together?
what do you mean?
A mentor program that would be more fulfilling?
There is a mentor program. The problem is that it's not necessarily applied as effectively as I would love to see it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is there a way for you to, is there a mechanism there for you to talk to somebody about getting it applied better?
Well, we apply it better in my lodge.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, it's a good idea. Perhaps one day we'll talk to other brothers who are in Grand Lodge, or, you know, I have friends who are part of the Grand Lodge who perhaps will entertain the idea, but
Well, they're more, they're very concerned about having numbers too.
yeah.
If you have something that's available to make the numbers better for them, I'm sure they'd be interested in.
Yeah.
They're on the business side of this. We're on the education side.
Mhm.
Brother Frank, I don't want to cut you off, but let's give some other brothers an opportunity to ask some questions. Are there any brothers that have questions for Juan? Okay. Well, Juan, I really think you hit the nail on the head this evening. Really, really do appreciate you taking the time to be here. My takeaway from this is something I've thought about for a while. It's, if a brother is willing to or wants to petition join the lodge, and he's paying that money to be initiated, and he's willing to pay annual dues, if he stops showing up for meetings and he is suspended for non-payment of dues, obviously he's not getting his money's worth, or he would stick around.
That's exactly it. We talk about it as the value proposition. Every business, every organization has a promise, and the person that connects with you expects that promise to be fulfilled. And when it isn't, they become disillusioned. There are people who will still support a business or an organization because they're getting what they came to that organization for. When we were talking with Brother Sam, he said, oh, the fellowship, that camaraderie, that place where no one judges me and we can come together and talk, that's valuable to him. There are a lot of brothers who are very judgmental, and they fail to see that through their judgment, they're unable to connect with brothers. They're unable to assimilate information that can have an impact on them. So, Brother Sam, if that is what he finds valuable, that's fantastic. Encourage that in your lodge. If what you find valuable is ritual, like Brother Frank was talking, then focus on that ritual. Make sure that it's exemplary, that the people that come and are part of your degree, they come out saying, man, that was really something. That was exemplary. But the important thing is, like, we come to Masonry searching for light, and that light has it's a full spectrum. And once you recognize what's part of that spectrum is the one that you want to focus on, there's a lot that you can do to make sure that happens, and that then you in part can reflect that on other people. So I feel fortunate that I'm inquisitive, and I don't necessarily like to sit down and wait for people to give me things or show me things. I like to dig in. I like to actually go and find information. Unfortunately, not every good man who comes to our fraternity has that self-driven characteristic. You may have someone who knows that Masonry has a lot to offer, yet doesn't know how to go about finding it. What's the proper book to actually read? What is the actual, what actual appended body to actually continue their Masonic education? They may not know exactly what to do, and they may not know how or what to ask. So when we actually open the eyes to the brothers and show them more. Say, there's more to Masonry than what you're seeing right now. Let me show you a little bit of what the esoteric component. Let's talk about the spiritual component. Let's talk about the political history that comes with the craft. Let's talk about history itself. Those are all elements. It's just like when you go to college. You have to, when the first couple of years when you go to college, you have all these different electives and these social studies, or I don't know what you call them, sociologías, that kind of give you a little taste of what different things are available for you to then go after. Because not everyone who joins a community college or a university knows what they want their future to look like. And it's that exposure to all the varied flavors of education that can point them in the right direction. So I think it's up to us to do that. It's up to us to make sure that the brothers get an experience that is well-rounded, a well-rounded meal, basically, that is going to help them find what's that area of Masonry that really fills their heart, that really completes them. And then we'll have a better opportunity to really match the content of Masonry and the experience of Masonry with what people on the outside think it's happening on the inside.
Anyone else have a question for Juan? All right, well, Juan, thank you again. I know it's getting late, but we really do appreciate it. And I hope that one day soon we can get together and share a stogie.
I agree.
Well, we don't even have to share a stogie. You can have one of your own, I'll have mine.
I like that better.
So can I get in here a second?
Yeah,
please. Yes.
So Juan, my thoughts have a lot to do with the word intrigue. And I believe that, not thought of too much, but when we're interviewing a potential candidate and the three brothers come in, and when they're talking to them, and they let them know that there has to be an unanimous ballot. And after that, and after they do get elected, they feel important. It's a very strong human emotion that makes them feel intrigued and powerful. The I. And then, like, whatever is offered to them afterwards, with a little bit of teaching of the esoteric, a little bit of teaching of any of the lodge culture or anything like that, will intrigue them to make them feel as though they're a part of something that is bigger than them. And I don't know if we're doing enough of that to give them that kickstart to make them feel like there's something special. And I'd like to see, like, a bunch of the masterminds in our fraternal community, like, come up with something like that to give them a kickstart right from the beginning. Do you have any opinions?
Yep. For a few years, I've had a program called Applied Freemasonry, where I come together with brothers in a more personal setting, basically using a tool like this. And I have structured courses in there to help brothers put to practice some of the lessons of Masonry. So it is designed basically in a way that meets the 21st century education components. So I love learning via video and podcast, and I want to be able to have some sort of worksheet that I can fill out, or some example that I can write something and remind myself of steps that I can put to practice in life. So I took the initiative to start this program, and it's been fantastic because brothers come together from all walks of life, and they have to be vetted. They have to be regular Masons, and we come together. Well, there's a self-guided component where from the leisure of their home or even on a mobile phone, they can access some of the videos and kind of go step by step, building upon those lessons. And clearly I don't share any kind of secrets. We only delve into some of the practical applications of the wisdom that goes along with masonry. So we actually have discussions in a forum like this one where we get down to brass tacks. What is it that you do better to manage your time? How are you doing it? Like, are you really spending 8 hours for the service of God, or 8 hours for this or the other? Are you doing that? And how are you doing it? We share information about studies, scientific studies today of the cost, financial and otherwise, of not having a good balance of rest.
Is it working?
It is.
Up
It
to
is.
your expectations?
It is, and it continues to evolve. When it started, it was just a rough idea, and because I love technology, I started implementing different things. So it has gone through different iterations. The feedback I'm getting from brothers that are part of it, they really enjoy it. I get a lot of like, I go back into those lessons that I might have ignored for a while, and I remind myself of the importance of actually removing the excess in my life. And it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten some friends for life from it. There are brothers who come into it. Everyone's different. Like, not everybody can meet at a specific time. So having that flexibility to actually watch the videos at their own time, they can see the progress that they're making, is an effective way to give the lessons. So I'm happy that we've gotten to do some of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And Juan, do you want to give any plugs before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so if you haven't seen my art, I invite you to go to freemasonryart.com. You can also learn there about the Steadfast, about the Strong Foundation course, which is part of the Applied Freemasonry platform. And as an artist, I have paintings and I have drawings that I've created, and I've spun off some apparel. So you'll find some shirt designs inspired by the work that I did. And when I started in masonry, I'm an artist by trade. So when I started seeing all the beautiful illustrations and the decoration in the lodges, my hands were itching, like, oh my God, I can't wait to be able to do some of this. And then I go through the first degree and I hear that you can't do this and you can't do the other. I'm like, oh no, I can't do this or do the other. But then I've finally figured out that, okay, well, all these Masonic artists, they are not revealing secrets. They're just doing the illustration to be able for you to connect the lesson to the symbol. And I started creating art that I wanted to see in my walls. So that's how it was born. I would envision, how cool would it be if you had the Bible open and the square and compasses in this form and that. And I started creating those things, and brothers started asking, oh wow, I like that. How can I get one of those? And now here we are 7 years later, I think. And my Masonic art adorns lodges and brothers' houses all over the world. I've shipped work to Australia, to you name it. And so freemasonryart.com, that's where you can find all the different things that I offer.
And Juan, we have one last question on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed it. Brother Matthew Walters, I take it he's a newly raised Mason. He says, what would be a first read for, what would be a first good read for all Freemasons, in Juan's opinion, or a good read he has finished of late to recommend?
Well, that I finished as late, I'm like a bumblebee with my Masonic books. I'm like going from one to the other, trying to find topics. When I started, I picked some of the staples from Masonic books, and I'm talking about the commercial staples. I'm talking about Idiot's Guide to Freemasonry, Brother Hodap's Freemasonry for Dummies. Those were really good primers for me to learn a little bit more about the fraternity and all the different appendant bodies and traditions, because then that opened up my mind. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know that there was this other appendant body, or that this history is, or that this historical figure was a Mason. And then I would branch out from there. Also, I'm a very big advocate that your book collection should not be fully Masonic. And I love the idea of having some Masonic books. I have, of course, anything by Brother McNulty is great contemporary writing that is easy to digest, and it has glimpses into some very profound things. But I think a Mason needs to be well-rounded. I can't imagine, if you think of the brothers who came before us, some of the brothers that we utter their names constantly, like, Benjamin Franklin and, George Washington, any brother of influence, their reading diet wasn't Masonic, almost guaranteed. If they were voracious readers like Benjamin Franklin was, it was about all matters of subject matter, and that's what makes you a well-rounded man. And, it can't all be Masonry.
I think that's a great point to make. That I personally have read many books that were not written by Masons and not necessarily about Masonry, but really carried some Masonic undertones that resonated with me. I thought, oh, that makes sense. I see that, I recognize that, both fiction and nonfiction. So I think that's a good point about being a well-rounded Mason, having that diversity. You're not just reading Steinmetz, McNulty, Wilmshurst. You're diversifying. So yeah. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay. Next week we have Brother Jamie Lamb coming to speak with us. So please join us for that. And Juan, thank you again. Outstanding presentation.
Thank you.
Hope we can have you back one day. And again, look forward to sharing a drink and a cigar with you soon.
Likewise. Yeah. Hopefully, brothers, stay safe. I hope that you are able to, in due time, get back together in fellowship. Do so safely. And I really appreciate you taking some time to spend it with me and listening to my ramblings. I really hope that you can take something of value out of this. Granted, I don't have all the solutions of the world, but this is, again, as part of the conversation we had, this is the cooperative component. Hopefully something we talked about today can spark some excitement in you. It can spark some ideas that can really make a difference in your lodge. So, Brother Matt, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate you inviting me over. It's been a tremendous pleasure and an honor, and I look forward to our next conversation. I really do.
As do I. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now. Yep, there we go.